When we started this course, we built a sample tasks application kind of from scratch using both Angular and Spring Boot. Then we got into setting up our development environment for JHipster so that we could use it to generate our applications. Now what I want to do is actually generate a JHipster tasks application. Now further in this course, we're going to actually work on a real world application, but I didn't want to dive just straight into that yet. I want to kind of ease you along. And so to do that, we're going to kind of try to build out that same tasks application, or at least pieces of it, using JHipster. And we'll kind of look at everything that JHipster does for us and how it really saves us a lot of time. So here I am in a directory inside of the main GitHub project, and it's called JHipster course. And I'm just going to make a new directory. So let's go ahead and make dir, and we'll call this JHipster tasks. And what we want to do is cd into there. And all we're going to do is run yo jhipster. And so remember, this is a Yeoman generator. We're using the JHipster generator. And what this is going to do, it's going to ask us a series of questions. And we're only going to have to do this one time, but this is us describing our application of what it's going to look like, what components are going to be in there, everything that JHipster is going to need to kind of generate our base application for us. So let's just walk through the questions real quick. We'll generate an application, and then we'll run it, and we'll move on. So the first one is, which type of application are you trying to create? So monolithic is kind of the all-in-one encompassing application that we're used to building. So that's recommended for simple projects. If you want to get into microservices, you can actually create a gateway and then the actual microservice applications that kind of use the gateway. So we're going to stick with monolithic for now. We'll go ahead and create that. What is the name of your application? We'll call this tasks. What is the main package name? We'll go with the default com.therealdanvega. Do you want to use the JHipster registry to configure, monitor, and scale your application? I'm going to actually say no to that. We may revisit that later. What type of authentication would you like to use? Because we're kind of building out REST APIs here, I'm going to stick with the JWT, and that's really giving us like tokens, and that is the default, and that's probably what you want to stick with here. What type of database are you going to use? In my case, I'm just going to use SQL. I'm going to use MySQL in production, but an in-memory H2 for my local development. Do you want to use Hibernate second level cache? And I'm going to say yes, and because I'm only going to have basically one node, I'm going to use EH cache. If you were building out, say, like a microservice architecture and you had distributed cache, you would probably want to use something like Hazelcast. Would you like to use Maven or Gradle? Again, whatever you're comfortable with, you can use either. What other kind of technologies would you like? You can integrate real easily some kind of social login, whether it's Facebook, Google, or Twitter. Do you want to have like search engine capabilities using Elasticsearch? Do you want to use WebSockets, or do you want to use Apache Kafka? So we're just going to stick with nothing for now. And here it is. Which framework would you like to use for the client? Again, we're building everything in Angular 4, so we're going to stick with that. It does say beta, but you can go into this knowing that it will work, and there are apps out there in production already using this. So we're going to stick with that. No style sheet. Would you like to enable internationalization? This is a good feature if you're going to use it. I'm actually not using it. It generates a little bit more, so we're going to say no for now. Besides JUnit and Karma, which testing frameworks would you like? I don't actually need any for now, so I'm just going to stick with the default. And there is a JHipster marketplace. At this time of recording, there's about 37 projects on there. It's just a way to plug in functionality into your application. So if you'd like to use another generator in there, you could. Again, I'm going to say no. So it went off pretty quickly and created a whole ton of files. And it says, I'm all done running yarn install for you to install all of the required dependencies. If this were to fail, you can try running that command yourself, but this should go through for us. All right, so everything finished. Our applications were generated successfully. Notice I said applications. So remember back in the first section, we kind of took that approach where we had a client application and a server application. So we had our Spring Boot app and our Angular app. So basically, both of those were generated here, and we can kind of start those separately just like we did when we were working on it from scratch. So remember these commands. Let's go ahead and run yarn start. And this is kind of like we did with ngserve, but this yarn start is going to basically run everything we need to get our local server running. And as you can see, project is running at localhost 9060. That is the project here. Webpack comes in. Again, and Webpack's going to do all that bundling for us. And that's going to actually launch a browser for us at localhost 9090. Connected to browser sync. If you want to, go ahead and check out browser sync. It's pretty cool. It enables us to leave our browser up and running, and no matter what we change, we don't need to reload the browser, which is really nice. So here's just our Angular application running, localhost 9000. And we can see if we wanted to sign in, we could. If we wanted to go to register, we could. And this is kind of everything from the Angular side that's going on right now. If we were to log in, then we would see some more. So we'll cover exactly what was generated in probably the next lesson, but I just wanted to take a look at that. So let's go ahead and minimize this and come back here. And we're going to stop that. And remember, if we wanted to, we could run the Maven command. And again, this is that Maven wrapper. So we don't need Maven installed. So this is actually going to run the Spring Boot application side of things. And so it's going to go down, doing a bunch of things here, building. And then you'll see our familiar Spring Boot application come up along with the console, the different things that it logs. So there you go. We're running Spring Boot 1.5.4.release, and it's going to go through. And once it starts down here, you'll see our application tasks is running. You can go ahead and access it from localhost 8080. And these are the different profiles in that application that we have available. So let's just copy this, jump back to our browser, localhost 8080, and here's our Spring Boot application. You can see this little red here ribbon is telling us that we're running in our dev profile. So we can come in here, we could sign in with admin, and we are now in the administrator section. We can come in and visit some of the actuator endpoints to get an idea of what's going on in our application. So I think we're going to cut it off there. We're going to jump in and actually look around the UI in either probably the next lesson here, and actually look around and see what was generated for us, just to kind of get an idea of what is up and running without really writing any code ourselves. But again, in this lesson, we took a look at creating our first JHipster application. We created our task application. We looked through all of the different steps that it takes to generate our application and what those steps really mean. And then finally, we just looked at running our application. We can run the client-side application, and we can run the server-side application from right after we installed it. So with that, let's go ahead and move on.